Yes, I can hear you, sir.
Okay. Madam, we have 82 participants. Out of 82 participants, 25 participants from overseas. They are mainly from China, Egypt, India, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Nepal, and Oman, Saudi Arabia, Nigeria, Tanzania, Mali, and so on.
And I hope during the next batch we will have an officer from Maldives too.
Yeah, we are expecting.
Should work on it.
Madam, I think His Excellency President will join us soon, the former President.
Can you hear me? I thought I am joined. Can you see me?
No, sir, I cannot see.
But we can hear you, but we cannot see.
Well, let's see what they could do.
Sir, we can see one.
Can you see me?
Not yet, sir.
Yes,
You
sir.
have to on your video.
But there's
On the video.
someone else is saying something else, so you can't see me. I don't think you can.
No, we cannot see you, but we can hear you clearly.
Well, perhaps that's far better.
Switch on the screen share. Someone has done the screen share from your end.
Yeah, okay. I don't know why they haven't got it. Just give me a few minutes, please.
Yes, please.
Sean, how are you?
Okay, sir, you take your time, sir.
Yeah, give me a few minutes.
Okay, yes.
Now we can.
Now we can see you, sir.
Can you?
Welcome.
Yeah, you are visible, you are audible, sir.
Ah, fine, perfect.
Next, sir, if you have your presentation, you can, sir, upload.
Thank you. I can start now?
Sir, now, if you have your presentation,
Yeah.
your PowerPoint, you can upload that. Just I will introduce you, then you will start.
Okay, thank you. Sir, I haven't uploaded my presentation because there's tendency to move away from what I have written.
Okay.
Sir, we can start the introduction part, sir.
Okay. I will ask someone to quickly do this.
Should I start?
Oh, but-
Introduce you, sir?
I am ready.
Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Respected guest speaker, Commandant, Senior Directing Staff, dear course member. Assalamu alaikum and good morning to you all. This afternoon we are highly privileged and honored to have among us His Excellency Mohammad Nasheed, former President of Maldives, thematic ambassador for the Climate Vulnerable Forum, as a guest speaker. Dear course members, the respected guest speaker is going to broaden our horizon on effect of climate change on Maldives, the risk and adaptation policy. Before I hand over the floor to the guest speaker, let me introduce him to you briefly. Mohammad Nasheed was born on 17 May 1967 in Maldives. He is journalist, activist, and politician who was elected president of the Maldives in 2008, but resigned from the office in early 2012 in what he characterized as a coup. After his exile in 2015, he returned to the Maldives in 2018. Soon after, served as Speaker of the People's Majlis in 2019. Mr. Nasheed received a bachelor's degree in maritime studies from Liverpool John Moore University in 1989. In 1999, Nasheed was elected to the Maldivian Parliament, the People's Majlis. After riots in the capital Malé in September 2003, Nasheed left Maldives for Sri Lanka, and while in exile, Here he helped found the opposition Maldivian Democratic Party in November 2004. Mr. Nasheed returned to the Maldives in April 2005 in the first pre-presidential election in the Maldives in October 2018. Nasheed defeated his opponent with 54% of vote. As president, Mr. Nasheed became known internationally for his outspoken efforts towards halting climate change. The Maldives announced plans that year to become the world's first carbon neutral nation by 2020. Nasheed even held a cabinet meeting underwater in October to draw attention to the danger in the Maldives would face from rising sea level. The British government granted him asylum as a political refugee in May 2016. He left for Sri Lanka later that year, where he remained until late 2018. The Supreme Court of Maldives stayed the charges against him on October 30, 2018, and he returned to Maldives 2 days later. The following year, he was elected to the People's Majlis and became Parliament Speaker. Dear course member, meanwhile, Her Excellency Aishat Shanshaki, Ambassador of Maldives to Bangladesh, is present with us. Thank you, Excellency, for your gracious presence in online. And now I humbly request our guest speaker, the former President Nasheed, to take over the floor. Sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, the principal of the college, everyone who is listening to this event. Good morning. We have all seen on television, soon after the fall or the Arab Spring, vast amount of people displaced, and those people marching towards a better life in Europe. Europe decided to close their borders, make themselves Fortress Europe, but that was just 1 million people being displaced and on the move. Climate change is going to displace more than a quarter of the world's population. The climate crisis is a grave national security threat to the Maldives, to Bangladesh, and to the world. Because the world is burning. The largest ice shelf in the Atlantic has collapsed. In the Arctic has collapsed. A third of Bangladesh was recently underwater. There were actually so many hurricanes in the Atlantic this year, they ran out of alphabets, names in the alphabets to give names to these hurricanes. But vulnerable countries like the Maldives and Bangladesh are not prepared to become the first victims of climate change. Instead, we must do everything in our power to keep our heads above water. We harbor no illusion about the dangers, and we are acutely aware of the vulnerability. Climate change is a national security issue. It's an existential threat. The recent IPCC report is crystal clear. Emissions must be reduced by around 15% in 10 years to stabilize global warming at 1.5 degrees. Climate change is already upon us, but that doesn't mean we are going to give up. We plan to survive in a warming world any way we can. We are blessed, I am grateful, that the Prime Minister of Bangladesh, as the present leader of the Climate Vulnerable Forum, has taken up the issue as a crusade of herself. And I am confident that with her leadership, all of us working behind her, we will be able to find solutions to these grave problems. We plan to survive in a warming world any way we can, as I mentioned. But that doesn't mean, however, we will destroy what is left of nature. In our quest for adaptation, we don't want to concrete over coral reefs or bulldoze the mangroves forest, which protect us from storm surges. We need to work with nature, not against it, to restore nature as we can. That's why we need soft but smart adaptation strategies. We will build seawalls that encourage coral reef growth. We will grow mangroves to protect ourselves from storm surges. We will use the latest science and cultivation techniques to grow corals that can survive hotter and more acidic seas. Resilient coral, resilient mangroves. Because some warming is inevitable, even if we commit to zero emissions today. Coral reefs are literally the bedrock of not only my country, the Maldives, but that is the largest living creature in the planet. Just as the mangroves are so important to Bangladesh, corals are so important to so many of other atoll nations. In the Maldives, all islands, reefs, and lagoons are made from and protected by reefs. The Maldives is a living ecosystem we cannot allow to die. We must not allow these crucial ecosystems to go extinct. We call on nations, big and small, rich or poor, to join hands with us to find crisis strategies that can save as much of the reefs as possible. We must work together to salvage what we can. Of course, we cannot adapt forever as the world gets hotter and hotter and hotter. We must cut emissions, and fast. It's madness for us to allow global CO2 levels to go beyond 450 parts per million and temperatures to shoot past 1.5 degrees. That can still be prevented. If we come together on the basis of the emergency facing us, we can do it. Every country on earth will have hell to pay if we don't. The Maldives is not prepared to allow that to happen, and I am grateful that Bangladesh is not willing to allow that to happen. And I know Bangladesh is not prepared to let it go. Instead, we will play our part. Bangladesh is the current president of the Climate Vulnerable Forum, a group of 48 countries that are especially vulnerable to climate change. Maldives is a member. I am proud to have been recently appointed by the Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina as an ambassador of the Climate Vulnerable Forum. I am delighted that the Bangladesh government and the Climate Vulnerable Forum just launched a new campaign to reduce global emission. The campaign, called Midnight Survival Deadline for the Climate, is calling on all nations to act by improving their ambition on how they transform their economies to clean energy, and submit this ambition under the national determined contributions under the Paris Agreement by midnight, December 31st this year. I applaud Bangladesh and the CVF for launching this worthy campaign, which we should all fully support. Although South Asian countries did not cause the climate crisis, I believe we have a real opportunity to fix it. If South Asian countries unite behind a vision of prosperity and low emission, we can lead the world on climate change and take advantage of all the progress that new, clean technologies provide. South Asian countries such as the Maldives, India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, we all rightly aim to achieve middle-income status or even greater prosperity within the next 2 decades. If this development is done in a high-carbon way, it is game over for the climate. We have to fight out a way through this conundrum. To do that, I am appealing to countries to work with me and a team of world-class energy experts to draw up what the Bangladesh government has called climate prosperity plans. These plans will aim to deliver the economic growth and prosperity that our countries rightfully demand, to eliminate poverty entirely and allow today's least developed countries to reach middle-income status by 2035-40. And they will achieve this new, clean technologies that allow our emissions to fall to zero. In summary, we do not want eco-austerity. We want eco-prosperity. We in South Asia may be climate vulnerable, but we are not victims. We are leaders. As ambassador for the Climate Vulnerable Forum, it is my job to take our high ambition plans or climate prosperity plans to form the nucleus of a high ambition coalition that also includes the biggest and most powerful nations. This is a new era for climate. Instead of I won't because you won't, we have I will because you will. Instead of the blame game, we have the aim game. So let's aim for high ambition, zero carbon, get back to 1.5 degrees, and we must save the planet. Bangladesh military officers and all the militaries of South Asia. The Indian Ocean must be protected. It must be safe for its people. This ocean is for its dwellers, the islanders, and all those who are on the banks of the Indian Ocean, Bangladesh, India, Sri Lanka, especially for us in South Asia. If we are unable to fix the climate issues, that would become the biggest national security threat for our region in the next few decades to come. Thank you.
Sir, have you finished your talk?
Yes, thank you so much. I was told that I should allow time for questions. So, yes, I have finished my speech. Thank you so much.
Okay. Sir, then we can take a short break for 10-12 minutes, sir. Then we'll come back. We'll come back at 11:55, sir.
Sorry, my time is 10:45.
11 minutes, just after 11 minutes, with 11:55.
Okay, thank you.
For question session.
Thank you. We will keep without disconnecting.
Excellency, can you take the question?
Yes, sir, I am ready.
Okay. First questions to be asked by Brigadier General Jamal Hussain, Joint Secretary Dr. Aminur Rahman, and Brigadier General Moazzam Hussain.
Okay, thank you.
You will give answer one to one.
Good morning, Your Excellency.
Morning.
I am Brigadier General Jamal from Bangladesh Army. Thank you so much for timely insight to one of the most important issues of the day world is facing, and we are also heading towards a very devastating effect. Excellency, some of the developed countries are continuously emitting the carbon, making us vulnerable. It is true. Not all the countries are responsible for that. Few countries, they have industries, and probably they need to take more care. So the question to you is that what efforts can be done so that those countries stop such emission for a better world? On the legal side, on making them understand of the issue, and also taking care of the better world. If you put your comment on this. Thank you, Your Excellency.
Thank you very much, sir. I feel that there are two courses of actions that we can take. One is to point out the economics of renewable energy, low carbon development strategies. It is now very clear that in any given situation, renewable energy is cheaper than fossil fuel. So I think there is a very strong need to promote the economic idea, the ideology and the principles, and also that kind of strategy in countries to suggest that this is actually more profitable. So I think we should start lobbying banks, especially the World Bank and the IMF, and also the other banks, and increasingly it is now being said by banks as well that the risks are too high. Recently, I joined a seminar conducted by the Lloyd's Group, who have been insuring risks for a long time. In the past, they used to write off about 5% as risk. But now it's really not possible to do that. A far greater amount we are having to risk a far greater amount than we used to. So I think one area is to push on the economics. The other area is, as you suggested, the legal area. We should be going to the criminal court. And we should be restraining countries who continue to emit carbon and who continue to destroy our livelihood. So I think, yes, we must go to pursue these in international criminal courts and other international legal arenas, as well as coming out with the economics. I do know that we've been talking about the morality of it, but it doesn't work. People are not so very concerned about the morality of it. So I think one of the things is to find the economics, and the other is the legal areas or legal recourse that we can get. Bangladesh Prime Minister very appropriately suggested about the prosperity plans. These prosperity plans aims to bring development, but through a low-carbon development strategy. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you so much.
Sir, Your Excellency, very good morning and Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Good morning, and Assalamu alaikum.
Sir, I am Dr. M.D. Aminur Rahman and Joint Secretary to the Government of the People's Republic of Bangladesh, sir. Sir, very precise and concise, but the excellent presentation, embedded with the facts, figures, and information, sir. Sir, 1 in every 5 to 7 persons in Bangladesh and Maldives will become the climate migrants due to the excessive gas emission by the industrial countries. But the rich donor countries are not fulfilling their commitment of the 0.7% GNP annually to the developing countries as a development, ODA, official development assistance. So, just because of the global warming and the climate change, on 5th of Bangladesh, and I should mention that the whole of the Maldives may go underwater. But we want to save and serve ourselves and our progeny and posterity. But if the Maldives and the 1/5 of the coastal area would go underwater or the inundated by the sea level rising, so actually what is going to be happening within the next year? Sir, could you please make a comment? But we want to save ourselves, our progeny and our posterity. So could you please make comments, sir?
Thank you. The strategy that the Prime Minister, the Bangladesh Prime Minister is suggesting is the 48 vulnerable countries to become leaders. They must come out and show a low-carbon development strategy. A development strategy where the economic outcomes remains the same, high growth, GDP growth, low unemployment, low inflation, high wages. These economic outcomes remains the same, but through a low-carbon strategy. So we are talking about renewable energy, we are talking about better irrigation, we are talking about transport, we are talking about health, we are talking about housing. So can we come up with these services, provide these in a more low-carbon development strategy? We think that the science is there, and it is possible to do that. So one of the things that the Prime Minister has in mind, I think, to do, is to see that these new economic ideas are bought by developed countries as well. That they understand that the economics has turned, that the banks are no longer lending to fossil fuel industries. So we need to find the new economics and make sure that the banks, the financial institutions understand that this is the received wisdom, not the past economics where we were taught that air was a free good. We now very well know that it is not. So we need to come out with, I think one of the strategies is to come out with the economics. The other is, of course, we have to bring the matter to the attention of the international community, to the attention of the business world. Bulk of the people do believe in it, but I was just listening to the United States presidential election, and there were two vice presidents talking about management of forests so that there won't be fires. For God's sake, there are fires not because they're not managing it, because they're not managing the planet. It's not that they're not managing the forest. So I think this kind of, ignorance, we have to see how we can cut into the ignorance and get people to see the science. Naming and shaming, of course, is something that we must do. We must try to mobilize international opinion, public opinion, and I think it is quite possible to do that. More and more, next year there will be more disasters than the last year, and the year after would be worse. So I think gradually in the next 10 years, people would very drastically change. And it is for us to see that this change happens. I'm willing to work with you, with the Bangladeshi government, the Bangladeshi military, and the Bangladeshi people. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. A great many thanks for the very nice and excellent answer. Sir, I'm very happy with you, sir. Thank you very much, Your Excellency.
So your mic is muted, please. But the picture is beautiful.
Your Excellency. Your Excellency, I am Brigadier General Muajjam from Bangladesh Army. Your Excellency, local historical knowledge and coping strategies are first lines of defense against the impacts of climate change. These strategies are later strengthened by government and other stakeholders to transform into adaptation strategies. My question is that how Maldives is addressing the concept of people-centric adaptation in livelihood and income management. Thank you.
Thank you very much. But as we all now know, even if we all go to sleep tonight and never wake up, there will still be climate change because we have emitted so much poison into the atmosphere. There is a time trap there. So the climate is going to change, and therefore we must focus on adaptation. I'll give you one very good example. To protect 1 meter of coastline from sea surges in Bangladesh or the Maldives, it is going to cost us over $6,000 for 1 meter. And we know how many meters there are, millions and trillions. And we know that actually no one has that money. So we must find softer engineering methods, more biological adaptation methods. Growing a mangrove is going to protect the shoreline from sea surges. Bangladesh has known that for generations. How to look after our forests, how to look after our reefs, and also to use nature for our advantage as an infrastructure. In the Maldives, for instance, we build water breakers to protect our shoreline. The idea here is to see if we could grow a reef instead of bringing rock boulders and building a water breaker. The idea is to see if we could grow a reef and get the same results. And it is happening. So in this sense, we would need reefs that grow. We would need mangroves that grow. We would need a whole lot of new technology and a whole lot of new science. So one of the things that the CVF prosperity plans, Bangladeshi prosperity plans, are suggesting is that climate vulnerable countries have technology centers that would allow transfer of technology to our universities, to our companies, to our people. So finding new forms of energy, finding new construction methods, finding new farming methods. We do have a lot of new irrigation practices where a whole lot of new results can be brought. So I think how we may be able to adapt is I think we need the technology centers to research and find out about new adaptation strategies. And B, also make sure that we do not go business as usual in things we do. Now, usually the military is always brought in times of crisis, and everywhere. We all know that you're not there just to only fight, but you are there to save us, our livelihoods, our peace and prosperity. So it's really, in many senses, your strategy. At the end of the day, it would be your boots on the ground, and it would be you who would have to take the bulk of the work of this. So how do we adapt? How do we make sure that the next hurricane, that we can survive the next hurricane? How do we make sure that we can survive sea level rise? How do we make sure that the next forest fire is actually extinguished before it becomes a disaster? So I think the answer to your question is more software engineering, biological methods, financially feasible ways of doing these things. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency.
Thank you, Excellency. The next set of questions by Joint Secretary Khurshida Yasmin, to be followed by Joint Secretary Dr. Munirul Huda and Joint Secretary Nazmul Huda Siddiqui.
Assalamu alaikum, sir. I am Khurshida Yasmin, Joint Secretary to the Government of Bangladesh. Sir, at first, I'd like to thank for your wonderful presentation and in-depth knowledge sharing on the issue which is very much, I think, important in our present world, present climatic world especially. Sir, as we know that the effects of human-induced climate change have now become a global threat. Due to the geographical location, Bangladesh and Maldives are very vulnerable to climate change. Not only Bangladesh and Maldives, and some other South Asian countries also. Sir, as you know that the government of Bangladesh has taken lots of initiatives to address it. And the Honorable Prime Minister of our country, Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, already achieved the award, the Champions of the Earth. But it is very difficult to achieve benefit without the regional cooperation. Sir, I'd like to know from your side that what type of regional cooperation can be applicable to get optimum result by bonding a strong effort to address this climate change for the future generation. So,
Thank you very much. Madam, in 2009, I was first elected in 2008. And in 2009, when I went to the Conference of the Parties, the UNFCCC conferences, I found that India wasn't very receptive to the idea of changing because of climate change. And that really was very, very difficult when you had your best friend, your biggest neighbor, not agreeing with you. But, 9 years later, I went to Poland in 2018, late 18. India had already taken leadership, and, they have high ambition. And they are recently in a coal bid in India, the renewable energy bid was cheaper. In a power grid bid, the renewable energy bid was cheaper than the coal bid. So there is a sea change happening in Indian awareness and in Indian politics. And also, we all do understand that, my problem is Bangladesh's problem, India's problem, Sri Lanka's problem. Your problems are our problems. And, we can't just lock ourselves into little boxes and not decide to talk to each other. Bangladesh, of course, in this regard, has taken leadership. And I'm very confident that India, Sri Lanka, Maldives, Bhutan, Nepal, Pakistan, all these countries, Burma, all these countries must come together and to clearly speak in a singular voice. Now that the Prime Minister is heading the CVF with 48 countries, and with her reputation and her political savviness as well, I think we would be able to network not only in India and Sri Lanka and so on, but also in the 48 countries throughout, not only in South Asia, but throughout. Yes, We must have a lot of regional cooperation. Atmosphere is not divided by boundaries, and therefore smoke travels. So it's madness to think that it's not my problem and it's not your problem. Your smoke is in my nose, in my lungs. So it's all our problems. And I think if you want to be the leaders of tomorrow, you have to embrace the future. You cannot be stuck with the obsolete technology, Victorian technology of the internal combustion engine. It's outdated, it's inefficient, it's big, it's cumbersome, it's ugly, loud. And I think the new technology is the way forward, and countries must cooperate and must share technology. Of course, the answer to your question is there must be regional cooperation, and I would now argue that the CVF 48 is the appropriate forum to coordinate. And I think Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina is well placed to hit much harder with high ambition, and she's very well known in the international community, and the people of Bangladesh, the difficulties that you have, the difficulties that we all have, I think is expressed very, very eloquently by your Prime Minister. And so I think, with her, we will, Yasmin, we will, madam, we will stick this together. We will stitch it together and see that there is cooperation. One of the jobs that I am told to do is to ring these leaders. So I will be ringing. I will ring the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, the President of Sri Lanka. I will speak to the Indian government. I will speak to everyone, and I will try and see if Bangladesh leadership is taken up by these countries, and I'm sure that they will. There is no reason why they shouldn't. We are all facing this threat together, and thank God she has, the Prime Minister is willing to take the lead. Thank you.
Sir, thank you very much, sir, for your excellent elaboration. Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon, Your Excellency. I'm Mohammad Monirul Huda, Joint Secretary to the Government of Bangladesh. Sir, the questions that were asked before are similar to my question. You have even answered partly to my question. So I remodel my question a little bit. In Maldives climate change policy framework, one of the strategic policy goals is to strengthen adaptation actions and opportunities and build climate resilience infrastructure and communities to address current and future vulnerabilities. My question is if the sea level water increasing is likely to create considerable damage. My question is, in that situation, what would be the future strategy to protect your citizens? Just my question is, what kind of adaptation policy Maldives will take?
Thank you, sir. The politically correct answer would be to say that we will try to fend off the seas and we will rise over the water and we will save the planet. We would ask everyone to stop emission and so on. But what would happen, is what happened to the Rohingya Muslims. They came to you. And, I am afraid what would happen is we would find that next boat and leave. And as time immemorial, when we leave, the currents, the winds only take us to you, Bengal. We've done this trade for ages. I'm afraid we must draw up strategies with the view that this is going to happen. There's going to be millions of boat people. There's going to be millions and millions of boat people out on the seas. And these people would be trying to find dry land, safe land. And I'm afraid your estuaries and your canals and rivers take us to dry land. So, there will be mass displacement to an extent that we've never seen. When I started, just 1 million Syrians marching to Europe. They just didn't know what to do. President Trump has decided to build a wall in the United States. But, these are foolish things. It might be possible to do that with 1 million, but when a quarter of the world's population is on the move, God help us. So I think, sir, we must intelligently map this thing out. We must not be complacent. We must not be wishfully thinking that this day will not come. It's not a bad thing to prepare for the worst. It's not a bad thing. We should do our budgets. We should do all of our actions, all of our omissions with climate change in mind. I think that's the single most important thing for us. And all our strategies, all our planning must be directed in that regard. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, Your Excellency.
It's 12 o'clock in Dhaka. Good afternoon, Excellency. My name is Najmul Siddiqui. I am a member of Bangladesh Civil Service. Excellency, for addressing climate change issues, you have rightly underscored the need for joint action. But under what modalities can this be materialized in Southeast Asia, particularly in the context of prevailing realities?
Sorry, sir, I just missed the very last bit. Can you repeat it again?
Excellency, under what modalities can joint action be materialized in Southeast Asia? Joint action for addressing climate change.
Right. The idea is to come up with proper action plans. And that would lead to legislations. That would lead to procurement orders and tender notices that would implement projects. So basically, I'm sure all the civil servants and all the generals, all of you there, and I really do not have to teach you that to do something, we must have an action plan. And the action plan must lead to a legislative agenda. This legislative agenda would allow tender notices and procurement orders that would implement the project. So now, how would, let's say, Bangladesh or the Maldives or some country who is going through a prosperity plan fund these procurement orders, tender notices? How would they fund that? Now, what I feel that we are pursuing is to see if the developed countries are willing to underwrite these tender notices. Instead of asking them for loans or grants, well, there must be some amount of grants, but we are also seeking to see if we can attract their private sector to do the work through contractor finance, through build and operate procedures, through public-private partnerships. So the modality of establishing it in South Asia, I would say, would be primarily through public-private partnerships.
Thank you, Excellency. Dear course member, our guest speaker has another appointment, so he will be very busy. So this is the last questions for him. Commodore Paris from Sri Lanka. Commodore Paris from Sri Lanka.
Commander Pires?
Commander Paris from Sri Lanka, are you online?
Good afternoon, Your Excellency. I am Commodore Piris from Sri Lanka Navy. I hope you can hear me.
I can hear you well, Commander.
Sir, increase of sea level due to ice melting as increase of global temperature is not only a man-made activity, which is a natural phenomenon which, if you see the past history, it ever changing temperature time to time and it's increasing. We know that Maldives, more than 80% of the land is less than 1 meter above mean sea level, making its population extremely vulnerable, as you said, for storm surge, sea swells, and the severe weather. The Maldives spend millions of dollars annually for coastal protection works. In total shield of all inhabited islands including. Building a seawall is another option for even though it is very expensive. So what is your preparation for future construction of physical water barriers, at least as some solution, which is one kind of a man-made threat as well as a naturally happen temperature increase. Even though we try and level best to fight against the climate change, naturally the temperature will increase. So what is your suggestion, sir?
Sir, Commander Piris, recently in the east coast, near Jaffna, in the east, Sri Lanka east coast, they are finding a very resilient coral. We are also finding the same kind of coral, a coral that is resilient to climate change. So a coral that probably would survive the temperature rise. I also think that it is now time to genetically modify corals and grow them to become a barrier, to become a seawater, a water breaker. So I think the answer to your question, software engineering, more biological engineering, so that we are working with nature instead of trying to work against nature. And to do that, the question that you asked was on seawalls, should we use rock boulders? Or can we grow a reef instead of using rock boulders? You know, since I was a child, people have been telling me that all the way from Goldface, all the way up to Mount Lavinia, it's one beach, and then we should protect that beach and have a bigger beach in that area of Sri Lanka, you know. And it is so possible to grow that reef. And I think, especially in the Maldives and Sri Lanka, I have not actually dived and seen the underwater in Bangladesh, but I'm fortunate to have, you know, gone to school in Sri Lanka and therefore having lived there a lot, having seen it. So the answer to your question, sir, is the technology hubs that we are proposing to set up in countries that would look into resilient coral, that would look into resilient climate with a view that we could use nature as infrastructure. So grow a reef instead of rock boulders, grow, instead of an embankment, have a mangrove. So I really think that we should seriously put our heads together and get it going. You know, we have the technology. Actually, South Asia probably has the knowledge of this far better than anyone. The science people, the people with wisdom, people with ideas. There's so many people that I have met in our neighborhood is far greater than anywhere in the world. And I really think that we can do it. We should not be so pessimistic about it. We should be optimistic. We must find ways, and we must survive. There's no way that we can live, we can start thinking that we are going to die in the next 50 years. No, it can't happen. And therefore, we must find solutions, and I believe we will be. Especially, I will be speaking. Thank you very much. Your Prime Minister welcomed me as an ambassador the day I was appointed, and I will speak to your government and see that we can collaborate on finding resilient coral. And I think that's a beautiful thing to do. And also all the other vegetation that is required for coastal protection. We must come out with these vegetations as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. Thank you very much.
Well, it's a delight. Thank you very much. I must thank my ambassador, my High Commissioner to Sri Lanka, Shan Shakir, and you, sir, for arranging this. And I really hope that the Bangladeshi military would have a view in their strategies to see, now, who is the threat? Who is the threat? The threat is nature. It's not only a terrorist, it's not only a hostile country, it is what is around us as well. So let's think about it, and let's see how best we can pull our resources together, our manpower together. And I am sure we will be able to find solutions. And again, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity, the Bangladesh National Defense College, Manipur. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Excellency. Now I humbly request our Commandant to say a few words.
Excellency, I'm the Commandant of National Defense College, Bangladesh. Thank you so very much. We are overly grateful for the time that you have allocated for the course members of National Defense College. I've seen in your CV that the power that you have in your speech that really, I think, generates a lot of inspiration amongst the course members. And that power, I have not seen such power in the speech of anyone else for this last 1 year that we have been seeing speakers. And I remember that you had done your cabinet meeting underwater. These are all out-of-the-box iconoclastic event that you have done to send your message across. And we really think that under your leadership, this region will definitely be combating the climate threats and will prevail, despite a lot of apprehension that some of the countries could go underwater, and that will not happen for Maldives or for Bangladesh, because we will collaborate, and with, as the US people said, united we stand. So we will also regionally, we will stand unitedly, and we'll take lessons from Maldives and the action plan that you have undertaken to become carbon neutral in 2020. And we pray that you succeed in doing that, and we're sure that it will be happening. So we really missed your personal aura amongst us. We look forward to having the post-COVID situation. We would like to have you amongst us in Bangladesh, and that will be really an honor and privilege for all of us to listen to you physically and get the warmth of your power of your speech. On behalf of all members of National Defense College, the staff members, the faculty members, I would like to express our deepest and profoundest appreciativeness, Your Excellency, for giving us so much time. Thank you so very much.
In appreciation, I humbly request all course members to rise and give a round of applause to our guest speaker. Sir, we look forward to seeing you in our future endeavors. Thank you, sir, for sparing your valuable time.
Thank you very much again for arranging this, and I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you, ma'am.
Yeah, and may we all arise from this global pandemic and work together on the adaptation to the climate change. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, madam.